It's about I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Here we go. Down from the gun to the touchdown. It is caught. Touchdown.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome in on a cloudy and depressing. Jeez, I was not prepared to start the show, I guess. On a cloudy and depressing Tuesday evening. And I only say depressing because right now Michigan State is losing by 7 to Wisconsin on a national broadcast Peacock basketball game. So that's already, we're off to a fantastic start. But we had a little bit of a weird week in sports. It wasn't like there was anything major, or at least in so much as there wasn't anything that like was out of the ordinary, I guess like we knew the college football playoff rankings were going to come out, and they did, and they did not disappoint in creating a whole stir of controversy. We'll talk about that. That's the headliner. We're going to talk about that first. We also got to talk about the conference championship games themselves. Had a lot of good games there. Alabama, Georgia, Washington, Oregon, classic college football games. The other ones we're just not gonna acknowledge their existence. Lions hold off against the Saints on the road. It's quite the heart attack worthy game, but pulled out the win, and a lot of great games on the NFL this week. So it might be a little bit of a shorter show just because there's not a whole lot of individual news stories. There is a lot to talk about, and the first thing that I got to talk about is this college football playoff. So here is the college football playoff. The games are set to be scheduled on New Year's Day, which is a Monday this year, or next year. I never thought about that. Next year, I guess it'll be New Year's Day, Monday. Michigan, the number 1 seed, will take on the number 4 seed Alabama at 5 p.m. on ESPN. And Washington, the number 2 seed, will take on the number 3 seed Texas at 8:45 p.m. The Michigan-Alabama game will be the Rose Bowl. The Washington-Texas game will be the Sugar Bowl. So here's the thing. People are rather upset, not about Michigan, not about Washington, not about Texas. People are pretty much okay with those 3 teams. People have no grievance. Obviously, all 3 of them, well, with the exception of Texas, undefeated, won their conference. Pretty hard to argue their spots in the playoffs. But one Alabama, who I've been saying on this show, you can go back, I've been saying they're a sneaky team to make the playoff. I would not be shocked if they won out and they won the SEC. I would not be shocked if the committee didn't put them in to the playoff. And you know, one thing did shock me about this is that they did not put Georgia in. Now, Georgia has almost a perfect season. They lose their first game in 29 games. We went over, I want to say a couple of shows ago, they had gone like 2 years without losing a football game, and Alabama hands them their first L. It's crazy. I don't know if you're a newer Georgia fan. I can't imagine. That's just like, you probably don't even know how to mentally take what it is like to lose. As a Michigan State fan myself, I learn about that basically every week. I'm learning about it tonight with my basketball team. That's neither here nor there. So there are 2 minds of this because there's a team that I have not mentioned that is most at grievous, and that would be the Florida State Seminoles. So Florida State, they go out and they win their conference championship, and we'll talk a little bit about that game because that game was not good, but they win their conference championship. They go 13-0, a perfect season in a Power 5 conference. Alabama, of course, losing to Texas, who is in the playoff, to be fair, but a 12-1 season, not undefeated. So from the abstract, from just that, it seems so clear. Of course, Florida State gets in. One problem, Florida State doesn't have a quarterback. It's not simply that they're on their second string. They were on their third string quarterback in that conference championship game, and it showed. The product on the field was much worse without Jordan Travis on there. Much, much worse. But I want to give fair arguments because I've heard two sides of this, and I want to give the best argument for why Florida State should have made it and why Florida State should not have made it in favor of Alabama. So first, on the Florida State side, you go undefeated. You are in a Power 5 conference. You win your conference. It's pretty much implied by going undefeated. And even despite the fact that you lose your starting quarterback, you still go out and you play the games and you win the games. That is impressive. To be fair, Louisville was not a terrible team. There's a good chance Louisville could have won that game, but you went out with your third string quarterback, and was it ugly? Yep. Was it just the worst football I've ever seen? Maybe not totally. I had to watch Michigan State this year, but it was a bad game. It was not good, but you won it. And so, if you're Florida State, if you're the rest of those players, if you're Keon Coleman, if you're any of the guys on the defense who, hey, they went out, they played a great game. Louisville didn't score at all. What are you supposed to do? If you're the coach, if you're the athletic director, what the playoff committee is essentially saying is, look, we understand that on paper, you had the better season. You went 13-0, but Alabama right now is the better team. Not over the whole season, but right now, Alabama is the better team. And that flips us to the Alabama argument. Alabama, obviously losing the one game, but they lose it to a playoff team in Texas. They lose it to the 3 seed. And since that game, have won every single game. They have not lost a game since they lost to Texas. And some of those wins were not pretty. Some of those wins were close. I'm looking at the Auburn game. I'm even looking at the Southern Florida game. That game was not pretty. But Jaden Milroe has gotten, or Jalen Milroe, not Jaden Milroe. I get Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe mixed up. It doesn't help that we have two SEC quarterbacks that have incredibly similar names and are both really good quarterbacks. It's its whole thing. But you're stuck where Jalen Milroe has looked far better since that Texas game. Every game he has gotten better, including in that Auburn game and especially in that Georgia game. And not only does Alabama win their conference, which is a Power 5 conference, arguably this season the second best, if not the best conference in football, or in college football, but they also knock off the reigning 2-time national champions. That to me, when I saw that they win that game, I thought, okay, I don't know how. I think at this point the committee is begging Louisville to win their game because the committee had to make a decision. And I think they started with the precedent that, okay, Alabama beating the national champion, winning the SEC, that matters more relative to their one loss than Florida State. Assuming Florida State did not go into their conference championship game and just destroy, look absolutely fantastic. I think if Florida State would have went into that championship game and looked like the Florida State of week 1 when they were destroying LSU, I think there's no question they would have gotten it. But they didn't. They looked very bad. They looked like they were a very different team without Jordan Travis, which makes perfect sense. And I don't really know where I fall on this because I'm sort of in a weird camp where, look, if it was up to me, if it was my choice, if I was the arbiter of college football, I wouldn't even have a playoff. It's ridiculous. It's college football. Bring back the BCS. You know who should be the national championship game? It should be Michigan and it should be Washington in the Rose Bowl national championship game. That's it. That's what it should be. That would be the game. And then you can have Alabama against Texas in a rematch in the Sugar Bowl. You could have Georgia and Florida State. You all the other bowls. You could do the same thing, and it would be fine. And everyone would love it. Everyone would be happy. It would be great. Nobody would be upset. Oh my gosh, Florida State, why didn't we make the national championship? Oh, well, we just get to play in the Orange Bowl or whatever bowl they're playing in, the Cotton Bowl. I don't know which bowl they're playing in, but nobody would be, you might be upset for a little bit, but the problem now with this playoff is the only thing that matters is the playoff. So, and which naturally, of course, that's the only thing who cares about, the Cotton Bowl this year? Who cares about the Orange Bowl? It doesn't matter. If you were to take a time machine and go back to 2013, back when, Michigan State was a good football team, if you were to tell them that the Rose Bowl, well, this year the Rose Bowl, I guess, matters. But if you were to tell them the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, those bowls are pointless. Who cares? Nobody's going to care about them in 10 years. You would be insane. People would call you insane. And it turns out Time Traveler would be right. Like we've already devalued bowls to the point where only the playoff matters, which means we have to expand the playoffs. And that's where we basically are just in the NFL on Saturdays. Like college football used to be this unique thing where at the end of the season, everybody, if you won 6 games, everybody is playing in a bowl game. And some of the bowl games are bad, like, you know, the Buffalo Wild Wings or the Red Box Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl or what have you. But some of the bowls are obviously historic. The Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, all these bowls. These used to be the cream of the crop. And even if you weren't a national champion, if you were playing on a New Year's Six Bowl, it was as if you were, essentially. Like, it was the closest thing to your Super Bowl, right? And it's just totally gone away with the playoff. It's just totally gone away, where you have players opting out. You have players transferring out of their school before their bowl game. Like, it to me, the body was already dead. College football was already dead. It was already just a show. It was always just about, you know, TV networks and what's going to be the better game. And ultimately, if I had to be a betting man, yeah, I think Michigan, Alabama is going to be the better game than if Michigan were to play Florida State or Alabama were to play Florida State or whatever combination of, you know, playoff you wanted to do. Yeah, I think Alabama, Michigan would probably be better. Now, this is the thing that gets some people upset. Because people say, oh, well, you know, people thought Michigan was going to be TCU. Oh, well, people thought, you know, Ohio State or Clemson was going to be Ohio State or what have you in 2020. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, like, people thought all sorts of things. But the problem is not like the playoff committee is given basically the impossible task of trying to figure out what will be, number one, the best game. Because that's ultimately, like, people don't want to say it. People don't want to admit this, but ultimately that is what matters to people. We don't want another 60 bomb dropped on a national championship game. That's embarrassing for the product. It's embarrassing for the schools that have to play in that. Like, it's just not good. And they don't want that to happen. So rather than having an objective metric, which again, I think they should just have an objective metric if they're going to go the route of playoff. But rather than doing that, they're sort of, you know, stuck in both worlds with this 14 playoff format, which is why I'm glad they're expanding in so much as it is the only way if you want to do a playoff. And again, I don't want to do a playoff. I would love to just go back to BCS and number 1 ranked team and the number 2 ranked team, they play in the national championship. And all the other New Year's Six bowls, they're you know, the whipped cream on top of the slice of pie. That's what that is. It's just everybody loves it. And even the mid-tier bowl, even the Capital One Bowl, even the Blockbuster Bowl and the James Earl Jones Bowl. I don't know, maybe he gets a bowl. Why not? Like, it was all just this unique thing. Like, bowl season used to be so much fun, and now it's just like, oh, is the 4th string quarterback playing for Pitt? Oh, okay. Do they have their starting quarterback? No. Okay. Is the run? No. And even when it's the, you know, the top of the cream of the crop, right? Even when it's the Cotton Bowls of the world and the Orange Bowls of the world and the Fiesta Bowls of the world, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I don't think people particularly care. I think it's one of those things where people will put it on, right? Like, I don't know. It's a weekend. It's New Year's Eve weekend. Yeah, sure. There's college football on. Let's check out Florida State, Georgia. And it's like, nobody really cares about the result. Nobody really cares about because it's like, oh, well, Carson Beck's not going to play, or, you know, Brock Bowers isn't going to play, or, you know, Keon Coleman's not going to play. Like, who cares? It's basically just like it's anybody's game. And yeah, sure, maybe you get a nice trophy and maybe you can get a cool sweatshirt or a hat. But basically, unless you're the national champion or unless you're in the playoff, nobody really cares at this point. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think it is just the reality of what college football has become. And it's It's run by TV and it's for TV. You might as well have Vince McMahon running the scripts. Like, you might as well. Like, but at least WWE is forthright about its fakeness. That's all I'll say about that. But want to break down the actual games themselves. Because, look, that to me, we had basically 2 very good ones and then 3 very not good ones. I'm not even going to talk. Okay, we'll start with the bad, okay? And we'll go kind of in reverse order of when they were played, even. So Michigan and Iowa played a game, like as in like they were playing a game, like it was something that happened historically in the world that we live in. Yes, and it was awful. It was awful on basically every front. I mean, first of all, something went wrong. Wow, that's weird. Thanks, ESPN. So first of all, J.J. McCarthy passes for 147 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Blake Corum runs for 52 yards, couple of touchdowns. His long was a 6-yard run. Donovan Edwards, his backup, his long was 17 yards. The longest play that we got, surprisingly, came from Iowa. Believe it or not. Addison Ostrenga had the longest play, a 19-yard reception. This was the most... I mean, I knew Iowa was terrible on offense, and I knew that they were really good on defense. But this is like I will say, for the quality of the conference championship game, I am glad that we have moved away from divisions. I'm not glad that we moved away from divisions in so much as it was something that college football sort of had, and we just continue to ruin every tradition that ever exists in college football. But like the fact that Iowa had a game where they could hoist a trophy, they had they did not deserve to hoist. Michigan State almost beat this Iowa team on the road, and Iowa was playing for the same title as Michigan. Meanwhile, Michigan was up 10-0 at the half. They finished the game 26-0 as they win their 3rd straight Big Ten championship. Credit Michigan, I guess. I mean, you beat an inept offense in Iowa, but I can't like they're just so. This is not. How did Iowa get here? Like how are they allowed to be a team? It is borderline corruption to allow a team like Iowa to exist. How can you be this bad on offense? How many total yards do they have? Let me see. They had 155 total yards. They went across the field a total of 1.5 times. That's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. I don't know if they gotta fire their coach. I don't know what you do, because at the same time it's like, well, they keep winning their division. They keep competing. They were just in the Big Ten championship just a couple of years ago. Why not? Seems to be working, except you don't finish. But look, okay, to get away from that, Michigan. I mean, they played a difficult defense. This is one of the tougher defenses they've had to play, and they put up 26, which is fairly impressive, relatively, I guess. Like, I guess for me, I look at this game and I'm not really moved any more than I would have been on Michigan, which is that, okay, yeah, they're the number 1 seed. I agree with that, especially given the fact that Georgia lost. If Georgia would have won, Georgia would have been the number 1 seed, but they lost. So Michigan has to be the number 1 seed at that point. But further, I need to see them play a team with both a competent defense and a competent offense. Like, Ohio State was probably the closest they had, and they won that game fair and square, no doubt about it. They played better. They won the turnover battle. They managed to move down the field more effectively, more consistently. That was a game that they won all around. But they're going to have to face Alabama, and that is easily the toughest game they're going to have to play. And it's also easily the best quarterback they're going to have to play. Second, the best quarterback they've had to play up to this point is Kyle McCord, who won't even be playing for Ohio State anymore. We'll get to that in just a second. But if I'm Michigan, I actually don't know that I really like the matchup between them and Alabama, just given the fact that it's Nick Saban, for one, in the playoff against Jim Harbaugh in the playoff. So it's like polar opposites of success in the playoff. You have Nick Saban, the mastermind of the playoff, and Jim Harbaugh, the run a trick play at the 1 yard line and turnover on downs, and suddenly you lose to Texas Christian University. But at the same time, Michigan still, they have a really good defense. And if they can bring the pressure on Milroe, if they can bring him down, it could be a low-scoring affair. It could be one of those kind of most of the game, nobody's really getting to the end zone, and then it gets to the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden defense is starting to get exposed. Big plays are happening. Blake Corum's running all over the place. Like, I think it's like a 70-30, which is not terrible odds. Like, I think it's 70-30 for how this game is going to go. Honestly, one way or the other. I think I could see it being 70-30, Michigan winning 70% of the time. I could also see it the opposite way. Like, I don't know. Alabama is out for blood, and I think they know they've been seeing people saying they shouldn't have been in the playoff, that they stole Florida State's spot, all that stuff. Nick Saban's going to use that to his advantage, given the fact that they have been just in this rut in where nobody believed in them. They beat the national champions. I think they want to go out and win it. And I think Nick Saban, we don't know how many years he's got left, but I think he wants to go out and win another one. He probably has heard about the fact that his last championship was the pandemic ring, and it doesn't count. So I don't know. I don't like the matchup one bit. As far as the Florida State and Louisville game, well, let me just put it this way. The final score of this game was 16-6, and it was awful. It was just the worst football I've ever seen. The most points scored in a quarter was 10 combined. That is 7 points for Florida State and 3 for Louisville. Louisville did not score until the third quarter. They did not reach the end zone one time. Jake Plummer, I mean, he was the best quarterback in the game, and he threw for 111 yards and a pick and no touchdowns. Brock Glenn threw just 8 completions for Florida State for 55 yards. They had a Tuafali. Lawrence Tuafali. He was basically the only offensive threat by either team because he ran for 118 yards and a touchdown. The lone touchdown in the game. This is a conference championship game, and I get it. These sorts of things are going to happen. There's always going to be a conference championship game that is the worst of the conference championship games. But again, it's the same thing with the Iowa-Michigan. Louisville clearly did not belong on the field. Florida State, at least I can grant that they had their third-string quarterback out there, so of course they didn't play amazingly on offense. But they did play great on defense. They made the stops. The leading receiver was Jamari Thrash, and he just caught for 57 yards. You didn't allow a play for longer. I mean, you had one really big play on offense for Louisville, and that was the 41-yard rush from Maurice Turner. But that's it. You had Jake Plummer, who had negative 32 rushing yards. The guy lost you 32 yards. I mean, I look at this game and I question why this game was allowed to be played. You might as well have just said, you know what, Florida State, you're just going to win. We're not going to play this game because people have better things to do. So, look, it sucks, but this is about the best thing for Florida State, I guess, that they can hang their hat on. They won the FEC. They won the ACC. So, good job, but sucks. You're not in the playoffs, so doesn't even matter. You don't even care. So, yeah. But on to some actual good college football. I have to talk about the Washington-Oregon game. This was, without a doubt, one of the best games of the year. Just like the first time these two teams played, this game was absolutely awesome. Michael Penix looks like he is trying to rein in another Heisman. It's going to be tough to beat Jaden Daniels, but Michael Penix is about the closest thing. 319 yards and a touchdown and a pick for Michael Penix. And that's like not a great day for him. It's only for 319 yards. Not a great day because he threw the interception. But you also had Dylan Johnson, who basically was like the Madden meme of Greg Jennings with his broken leg, except he didn't have a broken leg. He might have had 4 legs because he ran for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was just pounding the ball. 5.4 average per carry from Dylan Johnson. Jalen McMillan had over 100 receiving yards. Romeo Odunze had over 100 receiving yards. I mean, it was like, this is the best of college football to me. Like, this was as good as it gets. 2 teams with, to be honest, as I get that both teams scored over 30 points, but 2 teams with tough defenses that get turnovers, and then offenses that get a lot of points. This is college football. Rivalry, conference, regional, all that. It was great. And credit to the Ducks because they played this game as well as they could. They were down 10 at the half, but they came roaring back in the third quarter, had a 4-point lead 20 going into the fourth quarter. They just couldn't hold on. And Bo Nix played a fine game as well. He had 69 yards rushing. He also threw for 239 yards, 3 touchdowns for Bo Nix with the pick. His day would have basically been dang near perfect if he didn't throw that interception. And he was throwing it to basically everybody. Tez Johnson, 68 yards. Trayshawn Holden, 63 yards. Troy Flankton, 34 yards. Like, he was throwing it all over the place. Like, it wasn't one or 2 guys. I mean, obviously, you look at Penix's day, and you're just like, oh my god, it's unbelievable what he was able to do there. But this game to me lived up to the hype. I was thoroughly entertained by this game. And speaking of living up to the hype, Alabama and Georgia in an absolute classic. This is another game of college football classicness. Jalen Milroe put on a show, and it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like, 400 yards, but he threw for 192 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He rushed for 29 yards. And you also had Carson Beck on the other side, throwing for 243 yards. But it was like these were 2 very evenly matched teams, and Alabama just put it in. They just finished the job. And that's what I think. I think that's what the committee saw. And the only thing I will say about this game that disappointed me is the fact that I don't even get a chance to see Georgia try to three-peat. And Georgia, look, to be fair, they were losing guys. Guys were getting hurt, and it wasn't ideal. Lam McConkey, only 3 receptions a game, 38 yards. Pretty sure he got hurt in that game. Brock Bowers, not fully healthy. Obviously, he was coming back from an injury. Just coming back from an injury a few weeks ago at this point, but still, he's been playing with that injury basically all season. He had 5 catches for 53 yards. But look, it's got to be hard for Georgia fans that this is how your season ends. That you lose to that old bugaboo, that old Alabama team that you didn't have to deal with last year. That you beat the year prior in the playoff, but this year it's come back to bite you. Nick Saban, he always has the last laugh. Always has the last laugh. And look, this is again, Alabama is going to be playing Michigan, and I think they are the kind of team that can pull off the upset. And look, it's the other thing, just to point this out for Michigan, if you lose that game, and now if you play a shootout and you lose that game and it's close and it's back and forth and it just happened to not go your way, you know what? No disrespect, no smear. You played a fine game. But if you lose that game, like you lost to TCU, or like you lost to, heaven forbid, if you lose that game like the way you lost to Georgia and Alabama just comes in and pulls your pants down and smacks you in the behind, you best believe you're going to be hearing from me. You best believe you're going to be hearing from me about signs and about how you guys were cruising through an awful schedule and about how you got exposed for the cheaters and frauds that you are, even though you already are that already. But at least you have an opportunity in the playoff to prove that you actually didn't even need to cheat to win, which, again, has yet to be proven. But that is that. And then also, I didn't even mention the Washington, Texas. So here's the thing. I just don't have a great feeling about Texas. I don't know what it is. There's just something about the Longhorns, and I'm not a Texas fan or a hater. I come to this conclusion basically as like, I don't know. It's just a gut feel. I really don't have any evidence as to why I feel this way. I think that is going to be a good game, but I don't know. I think it's going to be Washington. I think Washington very much so could be the national champions. I really do. I think if it's Washington, Michigan, I think Washington probably wins that game. If it's Washington, Alabama, I'm a little bit nervous because it's Nick Saban, but I really do still think Washington can win that game. I really do. And Texas, to me, it's like, I don't know. Ever since you know what it is? It was that Kansas State game. It was that Kansas State game that made me think, I don't like you, Texas. I don't know. I just don't trust you. I don't believe in you. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. Something ain't right in the waters. So, yeah, that's my feeling about it. But that is it for college football. I'm not really, I guess I can sort of preview the next couple of weeks of potentially interesting bowl/matchups. Next week, you just have the Army-Navy game. I don't think I'm going to watch this game, and if I do, it'll just be on the TV. I won't really be invested. It's a classic college football game, but no, I won't be. It's the only game on the weekend, so that's the only thing that it's got going for it. But on to the bowls. Let's take a look here. Trying to see if I could spot any bowls that I think could be of some interest. We're not looking good here. We're off to a bad start. James Madison Air Force in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Hey, James Madison, they were in the top 25, undefeated. They feel good about themselves. Why not? I don't know. Things. Oh boy. You got Duke's Mayo Bowl. That should be an interesting watch for Drake May. If your NFL team sucks, that's a game to watch. You want to watch Drake May against West Virginia? That's on Wednesday at 5:30. What the heck is that start time? What the heck is that start time? They just got these games in the middle of the week, and it's just all. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. I don't. Okay. Anything else of interest? You got a top 25 matchup. You got the Pop-Tarts Bowl, NC State, Kansas State. That could be fun. Arizona, Oklahoma in the Valero Alamo Bowl. Never forget the Alamo. I won't. I certainly won't. You got Oregon State, Notre Dame in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Come on. Fighting Irish against Beavers. They don't have a head coach. Jonathan Smith is no longer with them. They also don't have a quarterback. That could be a terrible game. You got the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State, Missouri. That actually could be a good game. Although, again, they don't have a quarterback anymore because Kyle McCord is entered the transfer portal. Ole Miss, Penn State, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl this year. That should be something. That should be one of the games in the history of college football. You got the Fiesta Bowl between Liberty and Oregon. Liberty is just happy to be there. We'll just leave it at that. The Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. This to me is one of the ugliest matchups in the world, and it's Iowa, Tennessee, and I don't know which ugly girl I want to dance with in this game. Wow. Did I miss? I did miss. I didn't even talk about the Orange Bowl. Capital One Orange Bowl, Georgia, Florida State. That could be a good game, but again, I actually don't know if it's going to be a good game because a lot of people are going to step out, and Florida State doesn't have a quarterback, so it's not great, Bob. It's not great, but that's your bowl preview. I guess again, the only games to really be looking forward to is those playoff games, and those aren't until New Year's Day. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So that is it for college football for now. Actually, no, that is not it. Okay. I have to talk about something. This to me is ridiculous. Okay. Kyle McCord enters the transfer portal. This to me, let me read a quote here from ESPN. This is Adam Rittenberg reporting. The Philadelphia area native had 3,170 passing yards with 24 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions while completing 65.8% of his passes. McCord eclipsed 300 passing yards 3 times, but also twice threw 2 interceptions, including the regular season finale, a 30-24 loss to Michigan that ultimately cost Ohio State a college football playoff spot for a second time in 3 years. Okay. How am I supposed to read this in any other way other than Kyle McCord is soft? How am I supposed to read this in any other way? Okay, now assuming that he was not basically asked to leave, in which case, what the heck are you doing, Brian Day and the athletic director? But assuming it was not that, assuming it was, okay, your job to lose, essentially. Like, you played 1 full season with this team. You have a chance next year to redeem yourself. People at this point have been basically saying he's terrible, he's awful, he's no good. And I don't think he's all that good, to be honest. I'm one of those people. But, like, to just duck the competition, to just say, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. I lost 1 game as a starter. I did all these things. I threw for 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, or 24 touchdowns, just like a few interceptions, 6 interceptions. Like, what are we doing? How can we sit here and just say, you know what? I lost a game to my arch rival. I don't even want to play him anymore. I don't even want to do it. Because we all know if he would have won, he's going to stay. It's not a matter of like you were a drive away from winning that game. You were 1 drive away from winning that game, and you threw a game-losing interception. But that, like, how can we sit here and just say he's the worst quarterback ever? Of course, Ohio State, you got to get better at quarter. Like, if you're an Ohio State fan and you wanted this guy gone, first of all, you're an idiot. Second of all, if you're Kyle McCord and you think, the people are so mean to me, I don't want to play, people are gonna say mean things about me on Twitter. It's like, dude, I mean, I don't know how much money you're making, but you're making money, right? In NIL, guys are making money. You wanted it on the family business? Well, now you got to pick up a mop, okay? Now you got to clean the toilets because you're gonna have to deal with this. If you want to play on Sundays, which I don't know that he's gonna play on Sundays, but if you want to play on Sundays, you're gonna have to deal with that. And to me, it's just whatever happened to a little bit of humble pie, a little bit of character growth, of having to struggle a little bit. Like, heaven forbid you don't go 13-0 every single year. Heaven forbid you lose to your rival 1 time. I mean, my goodness gracious me. Grow a spine. Have some dignity. Carry yourself with a level of respect. CJ Stroud didn't beat Michigan his whole time. And I didn't even like CJ Stroud as a quarterback that much at Ohio State, and I didn't even like him as a prospect. But you know what CJ Stroud didn't do? He didn't let idiots like me stop him from being a really good pro quarterback, which he is. Kyle McCord it is ridiculous to me. This is the peak of, because here's the thing. Here's what a lot of people will say. Okay, they'll say, oh, well, Bo Nix transferred out of Auburn. Jaden Daniels, he was a transfer. Michael Penix was a transfer. Joe Burrow was a transfer. It's like, okay, we can point to the 3, 4, 5 examples of transfers doing this and it working out. And you know what? In Kyle McCord's case, I think he probably, any place he goes, he's probably going to put up similar stats, comparable stats. Like, you are taking a chance where you would be playing for a Division I school in one of the biggest programs in college football in Ohio State, where NFL scouts are going to be at basically every single one of your games, certainly every single one of your big games. Like, if you play well enough, you are almost certainly going to be a first round, if not a second round or third round pick. But you are going to now go play for, I don't even know who wants him, Rutgers, Northern Iowa, like Iowa State. I don't know. Who's he going to go play for? I mean, like, plenty of teams I think would want him. Maybe he'll go play for UCLA. Maybe he'll go play for USC when Caleb Williams goes to the. I don't know. Like, but you don't guarantee. Teams could just say, we don't want you. What's the, like, You have the job. You have the role. You have the resume. I don't understand why. And I'm going to lose my mind about it because it's just so indicative of today's culture where guys are just so soft, especially in professional athletes. They're Charmin ultra soft. Like, what are you doing? You know how many guys wish they could have that stat line at Ohio State? Probably a lot of people. I wish I could have that stat line at Ohio State. I'd be a millionaire. But no, I don't want to lose to my rival. I don't want to, risk getting worse. I'll go play for some other team and pat my stats. Yeah, that's great. So that's my Kyle McCord rant. So unless he comes back to Ohio State, which I'll have a lot more respect for that, but I just fundamentally disagree with Kyle McCord's choice there. If you like, I guess we can talk a little bit about this. If you get a new coach, okay, that's one thing, all right, but you can't just sit here and be like, oh well, everything's basically the same. But I don't know. I don't like to lose. I want to just go undefeated. Then you know what? Why don't you just go be the backup for Georgia or Alabama? I don't know. Like, if you can't handle it, then why are you even playing the games? I can't do it. Over like 1,200 people have entered the transfer portal, by the way. So that's wonderful. We basically just have total chaos in college football where, oh yeah, sure. I'm sure most of those 1,200 people are going to be the next Jaden Daniels, right? No, that's not what's going to happen. You have a bunch of guys who are going to leave great situations where they would be at a Power 5 school basically for free, if not for free outright, to play football, even if they're not all that good, but they think they're the greatest thing ever. So yeah, that's fun. But let's move on to the NFL. Let's talk about my Lions. Okay. Lions, hold on, beat the Saints on the road in an ugly game. I will say this right now. It was ugly. It was not pretty. I would not have danced with this girl at the party. Okay. But I'm never going to apologize to a win. I'm never going to apologize for a win. Never. Especially not on the road. And especially not against a team that's vying for a playoff spot. Now, look, I'm not saying the Saints are going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying any of that. But they, at that point, were fighting for their career. Fighting for their season. And look, the Lions came out on top. They're 9-3 for the first time since 1962. Best start since 62. And they're 5-1 on the road, which is, I'm sorry, that's incredibly impressive. I look at their record on that, and I'm like, okay, this is a really good team. However, I have concerns, and the concerns are obviously on the defense. Okay, let me just break this down. Okay, the Saints were 6 for 12 on third down. Can't have it. Can't have a team 50% on third down. Can't have it. They ran a total of 67 plays. Can't have it. They had 362 total yards. Can't have it. They had 5.5 yards per play. Can't have it. 249 yards in the air, 113 yards on the ground. 4 for 4 in the red zone. Can't have it. You just can't have it. It's unacceptable. And look, the Saints won the possession battle that game, but you won the battle due to the turnovers. And I'll credit the defense for getting the turnovers. I'll credit that. That's true. If you want to win games in this league, you're gonna have to win. You're gonna have to get some turnovers. I'll credit them for that. But basically, no pass rush again. Basically, an inability to stop the pass game again. Odds are we basically won this game because we didn't turn the ball over and Derek Carr got murdered. That's basically what it was. Like, the thing about it is Aaron Glenn, to me, this is a scheming problem, okay? During the broadcast, I'm pointing this out. It's like, okay, they are switching out Derek Carr for Taysom Hill at quarterback. 9 times out of 10, he is going to run with it. It's going to be a QB design run. And he was beating us basically every time where he was picking up, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10, 12 yards. And it's like, how can you not see that coming? Aaron Glenn, you were coach. You were in that staff in New Orleans just a few seasons ago. I'm pretty sure you coached Taysom Hill. Or maybe you didn't personally, but I'm pretty sure you knew him. I mean, like, shouldn't you have some idea of how this offense is going to operate? It seems indicative to me that Aaron Glenn just really can't scheme. Like, he has some guys on the team. Now, granted, we were down Alex Anzalone. We've been down our secondary, but you knew that going into the game. And that's the thing. It's not like a live game adjustment where, look, it's you still got to be able to do it, but it's at least understandable if you lose, Aiden Hutchinson or something. Okay, I understand. It's hard to just immediately adjust to that. But you knew what you were dealing with going into this game. And you made Derek Carr look like Derek Carr of 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like, Derek Carr threw for 226 yards. He averaged 10 yards per throw. He averaged a first down every time he got the ball in the air. He had a touchdown and 1 interception, and he was just sacked a couple of times. I mean, you can't have it. You can't have that happen. It's not acceptable. Like, it's just not. You have to be better. And look, I'm concerned about going into the Bears because the Bears offensively, they can be pretty deadly, especially with Justin Fields on the move. And we show we can't even sack Derek Carr consistently. So Aaron Glenn's going to have to figure something out for that Chicago game. That is going to be a big game. No, not just for the rest of this season, but you if you can go in and beat Chicago, and look, I don't care how you do it. Again, I'm never going to complain about a win. I'm never going to apologize about a win. I don't care if you win the game, 3-0. Okay, go out and win the game. And it's concerning. It's concerning on this defense, especially given the fact that the injuries keep piling up. And if you can't scheme when your team is more healthy than when it's not, it's going to be much more difficult than when your team is, onto their second and third string guys. The other thing I wanted to point out is the offense. I mean, look, you get off to a great start, 21-0. But then after that, you don't score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. I mean, what are we doing? Jared Goff is playing himself out of a contract. He had 213 yards and a couple of touchdowns. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't like, okay, we need to extend this guy right now. Like, certainly wasn't, that. And we just can't finish drives. The red zone offense for this team has become a concern. And now, granted, look, you're 3 for 5, but you got to consider the fact that 2 of those 3 you started in basically the red zone. Like, 2 of those 3, I believe. I could be wrong on exactly where the spotting was, but the first one for sure, you were, you got the ball on the interception. That was into the red zone. I want to say the fumble was also in the red zone. Let me see if I can pull up the punt. Where's the fumble? Oh, this is the first quarter, right? Yeah, this is the first quarter. Okay. Fourth quarter. Or no, end of quarter 2. What? Wait, huh? What? Why did it say end quarter 2? Okay, I think this is the fumble. Derek Carr fumbles, -1 yard. Okay, we weren't even in the red zone in that second one. So let's see. We had the Sam Laporta touchdown. We had the Branch touchdown, or not the Branch touchdown. We had the fumble the interception touchdown. Oh wait, no, those are the same. That one, David Montgomery. What was the other one? When else did we score? It had to be the JMO one then. Okay, let's see. 1st and 10. Okay, yeah, it was the JMO one because we were at the 19 by the time we got to that. Okay, all right, that explains it. So yeah, like 2 of those touchdowns in the red zone were due to turnovers. So you need to be able to march down the field and you need to be able to score. Like it is becoming a concern for this offense. You have to be able to do it. It's a part of being a good offense, is not just scoring when you get the ball at the 25. It's scoring when you get the ball at your own 25. Like, we were doing this before at the beginning of the season where we were marching down the field slowly but surely and then finishing a drive with a touchdown. So you got to do it. You got to just figure it out. And I'm not one of these Ben Johnson haters, because those people are complete idiots. This offense is still very, very good. It's not easy to score 33 points regularly in this league. So that we need to just get rid of that. That idea is just absurd. But the other thing I want to point out is Sam Laporta, because this is a positive note of this game. Sam Laporta is far and away one of the best tight ends in the league right now. He had 140 yards on just 9 catches and a touchdown. His long was a 48-yard reception on 9 targets. He didn't drop a ball. He was on point. He was basically our whole offense. Like, he was a factor. And the Lions have finally hit on a tight end. And I know some people are going to say, what about TJ Hawkinson? This guy's much better than TJ Hawkinson, and he's a whole lot cheaper. That's the other thing. Like, St. Brown didn't even really have that great of a game. 2 for 6, 49 yards. I mean, you really weren't. He wasn't targeted a huge amount, but he was not catching the football for the most part. But Sam Laporta came in. He was basically the way the offense was running at that point. You give the ball to the hot hand, and it was working. Just throw the ball to Sam Laporta. Why not? It just was what it was. And look, I think that Sam Laporta, I think he's going to be on the level of a Travis Kelce, of a George Kittle, of a Mark Andrews. I think that's the kind of tight end that we got here in Detroit. And that is a consolation, because it tells me that this is, even if we don't, get to where we want to be in this year, even if we don't win the Super Bowl this year, we have a really solid foundation of young players that are getting better and that are just growing together. You have St. Brown, you have Laporta, you have J-Mo, who's becoming more of a factor in this offense. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. You just have a lot more that you're building upon on this offense. A lot of just different weapons. It reminds me of San Francisco, where they have McCaffrey, they have Kittle, they have Debo, they have Ayuk. It's just like a never-ending supply. And then you probably have some guys that I can't even remember. Like, it's just a never-ending supply of guys where defense is just like, how are we going to stop all these guys? We don't know what to do. We have no idea what to do. Now, again, I talked about it. The defense just needs to get better. If we can shore up this defense, and look, the injuries have been a major concern. And speaking of injuries, Aleem McNeil added to the IR. That's a huge loss, especially coming into that Chicago game where you are going to need to basically be perfect on defense. Well, I guess you don't need to be perfect. We weren't perfect the first time we beat them. So you're going to need to be very solid on defense. You don't want to have to play another comeback game like you did last time. So it's going to be tough. I think that is going to be a very tough game. Soldier Field, Bears, the divisional opponent, they're coming off their bye. They're feeling good about themselves. And I mean, we're not that we're not feeling good about ourselves. We're coming out of a victory, but the injuries are catching up, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be one of the tougher games. And I said at the beginning of the season, I think this team can win 12 games. And I really still think they can. They got the Bears, the Broncos, Vikings twice, and the Cowboys. So that's 5 more games. I need them to win 3 out of 5. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, yeah, I think they could win 3 out of this next 5 games. I do. I don't know what that combination will be. It could be Bears, Broncos, Vikings. It could be Bears, Cowboys, Vikings. It could be Broncos, Cowboys, Vikings. It could be Vikings twice. It could be Vikings twice and Bears. I don't know. It could be any combination of it, but I think they can do it. But Aaron Glenn needs to figure it out on defense, and we need to figure it out on offense for finishing drives if we want to go far, for sure. No doubt about it. But around the rest of the league, we have many games to talk about. First things first, we got to talk about this Broncos-Texans game. So this was a surprisingly very good game. And I don't mean surprisingly in that both these teams are not like pretty good. It's more surprising in so much as, like, if you were to say at the beginning of the season that Broncos-Texans was going to be like a game a game to watch. People probably would laugh at you. But you know what? Shout out to the Texans, man. They are vying for a playoff spot. They're 7-5 right now. They pull off the win. CJ Stroud has another great game, 274 yards and a touchdown. Russell Wilson goes back to the Russell Wilson of last year. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 186 yards. He was not good. And they couldn't really run the ball. Though, to be fair, the Texans couldn't really run the ball either. Nico Collins looks like a stud. Nico Collins absolutely lit it up for the Texans. But it was a low-scoring affair. Texans only win at 22-17. And the Broncos were on the way. They had a chance. They had the opportunity to walk off this game, but Russell Wilson throws a game-losing interception, and that's all she wrote. Look, it ends the winning streak for the Broncos, but I think for my own personal feelings and emotions, makes me feel a little bit more comfortable on that game coming up in just a couple of weeks with the Broncos in prime time on a Saturday night. Everybody's going to be watching. That it makes me show, okay, the Broncos are not just a freight train, essentially. They're not just, going to win a million games straight. They are vulnerable, and they're 2-3 on the road. So that Broncos game will be on the road or will be at home. So they're not as good on the road as they are at home. But Texans, man, I mean, I've been saying it. I really think they have a potential to win that division. Now, it's going to be a little bit tough, but we'll talk about the Jags. They played a Monday night game, and things are getting a little concerned in Jacksonville. But the game I want to talk about was the Niners-Philadelphia game, because it just showed me at this point the 49ers, when fully healthy, are the single most unstoppable football team in the NFL. 42-19 on the road. Do you know how unheard of that is? It is absolutely absurd. And credit to Jalen Hurts. He played a fine game. He threw for 26 for 45, 298 yards. He had a touchdown. But Brock the Rock Purdy, he is unstoppable. 314 yards and 4 touchdowns. McCaffrey, 93 yards and a touchdown. Debo, 116 yards and a couple of touchdowns. It is criminal, the fact that they have all of these guys on the same team. And right now, if you're a San Francisco fan, if I'm telling you right now, I'm a Lions fan. I'm not a San Francisco fan. I think this team is winning the Super Bowl. I think, and look, I know that even still is too early. Which is kind of funny to think about because it's like, December and the Super Bowl is only a couple of months away. But things can change in just a month. I mean, please, weird things happen in the NFL. They could lose in the first round. I doubt it's going to happen that way. But look, I as it stands right now, the 49ers are far and away the best team in football. Like, they are just getting hot, and if they can stay healthy, if they can keep it rolling here, and it's not like they have like an easy rest of their schedule. Let me double check. They got to play the Seahawks, a divisional game. It's not going to be super easy. But actually looking at it, they do actually kind of have a pretty nice remaining schedule. You got the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Ravens. That's a tough game. The Ravens is probably their toughest game yet. That could be a Super Bowl preview. That really could. But yeah. So 49ers, really good. As far as the Eagles go, I wouldn't hit the panic button at all. I think this is one of those games. Now, it sucks because it's a game where it was, against a really good opponent, and you want to win those games. But you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose games that you're gonna lose games, then you're gonna lose them bad a lot of times. So I wouldn't fret too much if you're Philly, but be a little bit concerned about your defense. I guess that would be the thing that I'd be concerned about, because you definitely don't want this to happen again in the playoffs. And I don't think it will happen again in the playoffs, especially assuming Philly gets home field advantage and it's cold weather. I don't think this sort of a blowout is going to happen in Philadelphia in January. But, we'll see. We'll see. The defense has got to shore it up. But I think there's definitely still a path where the Eagles will remain the number 1 seed. But it's not the only game I want to talk about. Of course, got to talk about Green Bay and Kansas City. So, Jordan Love, is he actually good? And here's what I'll say, okay? I am going to stand on not any actual factual evidence. I am going to stand on statistical probabilities, okay? There is no way that Jordan Love is the next franchise quarter. I refuse. There is no way that they went from 90s far to 2000s to 2010s Aaron Rodgers to now 2020s Jordan Love, and all three of them are Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. There's no way. It is not possible. I refuse. Name me another team that has done this. It is unprecedented in the NFL. There is no way they have nailed their last 3 quarterback selections in the first round. There's no way. No way. It is not possible. But to talk about the actual facts on the ground, Jordan Love played a really good game, and he's been playing really good football for the past couple of weeks. He had 3 touchdowns, 267 yards. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs is honestly the bigger story to me, because it's a Chiefs team that is 8-4, but despite being 8-4, look like one of the worst 8-4 teams in the league. Patrick Mahomes did not have a great game. 210 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Sacked 3 times for 21 yards, which is unheard of. Isaiah Pacheco was basically their offense. He was running for 110 yards and a touchdown. But this wide receiver room for the Chiefs, to me, one of, if not the worst in football. Like, as bad as some of the teams that are in the bottom of the league. I mean, if your leading receiver is Travis Kelce, who is also not the same Travis Kelce that we've become used to seeing, it's not good. Like, Rashee Rice, he's solid, but he's not amazing. Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Every time I see Marquez Valdes-Scantling, it seems to me that he's blowing something. It's either he's not getting open enough. Obviously, the final play of the game, very controversial, no call. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, does he even play? Sky Moore, did you even play? Like, they drafted Sky Moore a couple of years ago in a late round pick, and you think, oh, okay, grabbing a receiver, but it's like they need I hate to say it, they need a Tyreek Hill. They need some big name receiver to replace. Like, they got away with murder, I think, last year. I think they got away with a lot of rookies outperforming expectation with guys like Pacheco, Travis Kelce playing out of his mind, figuring it out with Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, they got away with it. They did. And I'm not going to take it away. I'm not here to say that it was, it's undeserved. It's clearly deserved. They're still a great team. Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game. But they need to address their wide receiver room, and they need to address their offense entirely. Because they lose their offensive coordinator this offseason, the offense goes down. They've been losing wide receivers, namely Tyreek Hill, and things are just, it's not the same. And if you want Patrick Mahomes to succeed, if you want more Super Bowls in Kansas City, you got to give him some help. You got to give him some weapons. And I don't know. They did not really address it at all in the offseason. They haven't really addressed it first round of the draft. And to be fair, they've been drafting fairly high, so it's a little hard to address. But it's just not, it's not great. It's not great, Bob. It's not great. So Kansas City's got to figure it out. I do still think they're a threatening team. It's one of those things I will just never doubt. It's like Tom Brady. It's like, you know what? Even when they look ugly, never going to doubt them. Never going to doubt them. Because they're going to make the playoffs. They're likely going to win that division. They're going to likely make the playoffs. They're going to have home field advantage that first week, at least. Not going to doubt them. Not going to happen. Not from me, at least. But one final game to break down, and that would be Monday night's overtime thriller. The Jaguars and the Bengals, the battle of the cats. Meow. I'm never going to do that again. So is Jake John Browning? Is he legit? Like, okay. I'm sorry, Jake. I was not familiar with your game. You would have thought that Joe Burrow was still playing, because Jake Browning threw for 354 yards and a touchdown. My goodness. And he ran in a touchdown. My goodness. Jake Brown. Like, I don't know if this was just a fluke. I know the Jacksonville defense is better than this, but the fact that they gave up 354 yards to Jake Brown, I mean, what the heck is that? How is that even possible? And on top of that, on the other side, Trevor Lawrence played a good game, 258 yards and a couple touchdowns. However, Trevor Lawrence ankle may not be included. Now, it appears to not be serious, so I don't think he's going to miss any serious time. It's not like, he's out for the season or anything like that. But he gets injured, and when he got hurt, I basically just like, oh, geez, this game's basically over. They had to bring in C.J. Beathard, who I got to watch in the preseason when he played against the Lions. He's not good. And to his credit, he got them in a nice position. And, oh, my gosh, I felt so sorry for them. C.J. Beathard pulled off one of the great plays of the night. And you thought maybe they were going to do it. It was overtime. They get themselves right up to in the red zone and a holding. And they got a they're forced to settle for the field goal. It doesn't land, and then they're just doomed. They just lose it at that point, and the Bengals go down the field, get into field goal range, and kick the game-winning field goal, and they come away with a win. And their playoff hopes are still alive. A 500 team. Once again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if Jake Browning can just be good enough, he can get you to the playoffs. Like, he can keep you alive, right? Like, and they do have weapons. They have Mixon. They have Jamar Chase. They have Tyler Boyd. They have D. Higgins. They got weapons in Cincinnati. It's just a matter of that quarterback play. And so all you got to do, if you're Jake Browning, you don't need to pass 354 yards every night. That's not realistic. Pass for like 210. Pass for like 200, in that range. Just don't turn the ball over, and things will be okay. But for Jacksonville, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got to be a little concerned with Houston, breathing down your neck a little bit. They're 7-5, you're 8-4. That lead in that division isn't too comfortable. You're going to have to play really well down the stretch. And it's not going to be easy, but I do like this team. And you got to hope that Trevor Lawrence is okay. If he misses just one game, you're still alive. He starts to miss a couple of games, things get a little antsy in Jacksonville. We'll leave it at that. But that is it for the NFL. Wow, I think that's actually it for most of the show. Huh. Now I guess it is at this point that we transition into everybody's favorite part of the show. And by everybody, I mean at least me. It's at least my favorite part of the show. And I've been told by all the people that it's the most popular part of the show. It's the picks. Come on, play the music. This is a beautiful track. All right, so you know the deal. Seth is out, so we are going to read his picks and react alongside. So, Thursday Night Football. We just had a great game last week with the Seahawks and the Cowboys, so naturally, Amazon says, no, you don't get another good game. Patriots visiting the Steelers. Seth is taking the Steelers, and I will agree wholeheartedly. Look, the Steelers did not look great last week against Arizona. They pooped the bed, no doubt about it. But the Patriots are easily one of the worst teams in football I've ever seen. They're just not very good at all. So give me the Steelers to win this game. It's going to be awful. It's going to be ugly. People are going to be asleep by the end of the first quarter. I go draft Drake May, New England. I don't know. I don't know. That's your fate. Buccaneers Falcons. Seth is. Oh, I did not mean to do that. I did not mean to do a recorded message. Buccaneers Falcons. Seth is doing the Falcons in this game, and I'm going to. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take the Buccaneers. I know. It's on the road, but look, the Falcons are just not good, okay? And the Buccaneers, look, they didn't play. They won the game. They won the game. They beat Carolina. I feel like they're technically still fighting for their playoff chance, and they need to win these division games. Now, to be fair, Atlanta has done very good against the division this season. But, look, they look terrible against the Jets. I know it's a hot and cold league. Teams go up and down. But, look, I think right now, the Buccaneers, I think Baker Mayfield, if he can just figure something out, please, Baker, just go out and win this game. I don't want to see Atlanta in the playoffs. I refuse. It'd be cruel and unusual punishment if that was the case. Rams at the Ravens. Seth is taking the Birds, and I will agree. Ravens coming off of their bye, I believe. They are probably feeling real good about themselves. They're one of the top teams in football. Rams coming off a really nice win over the Browns. This is a tough defense that they had to play, and they came out and they knocked them down. They made them. They gave them a piece of that humble pie. But look, this Ravens team is too good. Lamar Jackson is having a great season. They're just playing all around good football. Like they do good things in all facets of the field. They obviously have one of the best kickers of all time in Justin Tucker, and I just don't see the Rams being able to overcome that. So give me the Ravens. Give me the Birds. Up next, the Lions visiting Chicago. Soldier Field taking on the Bears. Seth is taking the Lions, and I am just going to agree because I'm a Lions fan, and I will not pick against my Lions. Look, Lions are going into this game as the favorite, despite the fact that they have Aleem McNeil hurt, and despite the fact that their defense does not look good, and despite the fact that they almost lost to the Bears at home. Weather report says this game is going to be very snowy, very windy, very not good. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair, and if it's a battle of coaching, if it's a battle of overall amount of talent on either side of the football, the Lions are just the better team. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I do think the Lions come away and win this game. So let's go Lions. The Colts visiting Cincinnati, taking on the Bungles. Seth is taking the Bungles. You know what? I will agree. And it's weird because the Colts have actually been a playoff team this year. I gotta say, I apologize. I thought the Colts were going to be so bad this year. I was dead wrong. The Colts are actually a pretty solid team. They're actually probably on par with the Bengals at this point. But you know what? I think that the Bengals just had the better weapons. I think, like I was saying before, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. I think combine that with if Jake Browning can just be, an average quarterback, I think that's just going to be better than what the Colts can do. They got away with a good win over the Titans over the weekend, but I think the Bengals are going to pull away the win here. Give me the Kitties. Up next, the Jaguars taking on the Brownies. Seth taking the Brownies, and I think I'm going to agree here. Look, the problem with the Jaguars, for one, it's going to be on the road. It's going to be a cold environment. Cleveland in December is not an ideal place to be. But also, I don't know if they're going to have Trevor Lawrence in that game. And if they are going to have Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be hurt. He's not going to be ready. And the Browns, look, Joe Flacco, which is hilarious that he's their quarterback. Joe Flacco didn't look awful. Like he had little spurts where you're like, oh, maybe he's it's terrible. He's not good. But he's an experienced quarterback. He's got a good defense behind him. I don't know about the Jags defense based on the way they let Browning just, dunk and dime all over them. So, yeah, give me the Brownies. Why not? Panthers visiting the Saints. Seth is taking the Saints. And I'm going to agree here. Saints are just too much better than the Panthers. It's not really a matter of the Panthers being good. It's a matter of it's not a matter of the Saints being good. It's a matter of the Panthers being absolutely terrible. They are, without a doubt, the worst team in football. Just the one win on the year. And it's just bad. You don't have a real head coach. It's not good. The odds of you winning a division game on the road, very, very slim to none. So, yeah, give me the Saints. Texans, Jets. Seth taking the Texans, and I will agree. I don't care that this game is in New York. I do not care. The Jets don't have a quarterback. They just released, what's his name? Tim Boyle. And they're going to ride with Trevor Siemian as their quarterback because, I don't know, I don't think they're going to bring Zach Wilson back up there. They're terrible. They're just terrible. They have no offense whatsoever. Robert Saleh, combined with Nathaniel Hackett, is like the offensive game plan of a blind person meeting a deaf person and trying to jump inside of a volcano as a strategy to beat the Japanese. I don't know where that analogy came from, but I just kept going with it. That's essentially what their offense is. It's just suicide, but by a 3-hour scheme. Like, the Texans, I don't know if they're going to light it up because the Jets do have a really, really good defense. I think it's going to be another boring game. I think you probably see like a 13-6 win for the Texans, but they'll still win. Give me the Texans. The Vikings heading to Vegas to take on the Raiders. Seth taking the Vikings in this one. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take the Raiders. Look, Raiders coming off of their bye, probably well rested, need to come back. They had a little bit of a bad time with Kansas City last time they played. And the Vikings, I don't think that Josh Jacobs is the answer. I think Max Crosby is going to torment whoever they end up putting at quarterback. I think this could be a good win for the Raiders. And I'm definitely not just saying this because I want to win the division and I don't want the Vikings to win any more games to make it interesting near the end of the season. So give me the Raiders. Up next, the Seahawks visiting the Niners. Seth taking the 49ers. Yet no shot that the Seahawks win this game. I know. I don't like to do 100% guarantees, but I 100% guarantee that the 49ers are going to win this game. I mean, first of all, Geno, he had a good game last week against Cowboys, but the 49ers are top to bottom the best team in football. I don't think the Seahawks are going to win it. I know it's a division game, but it's going to be in San Fran, enemy territory. It's just not boding well for the Seahawks. Give me the 49ers. Up next, the Bills visiting Kansas City, taking on the Chiefs. And Seth is taking the Chiefs. It's funny. Looking back, like, if you were to say this game is going to be a game, like 2 years ago, if you were to say, oh, yeah, Bills-Chiefs this week, people would say this is going to be the game of the week. This might be the most depressing game ever because these are two teams with offenses that are spiraling out of control in terms of their ability to do things right. But I will agree with Seth. I will take the Chiefs to win this game. I think the Bills are doing worse offensively generally, and the Chiefs are still fighting for their – not that the Bills are not fighting for their playoff lives, but the Chiefs are fighting for certainly seeding and certainly for that division as the Broncos and the Raiders not, completely out of it, but certainly not out of it. Or not like – it's not like they're right next to them, but, you want to finish it off if you're the Chiefs. You want to get another division win, and Patrick Mahomes is just too good. I don't anticipate them losing this game, especially not at home. Give me the Chiefs. Broncos visiting the Chargers. Seth is taking his Chargers to win this game at home. And I'm sorry, Seth, you're wrong. Broncos are going to win this game. They nearly had that game last week against the Texans, and I can't believe in the Chargers. How they beat New England 6-0, that to me is worse than losing the game. I mean, if you're going to win the game, at least do it with some dignity. I'm glad I did not start Justin Herbert in fantasy because I would have been beyond myself enraged with him. Give me the Broncos. I think they're going to pull off the win. And I think this could be the game that gets Brandon Staley fired. It's possible. Assuming that the Broncos don't just lose or win the game in the final drive or something. We'll see. Give me the horses. Eagles at the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Seth is taking the Eagles. And you know what? I'm going to agree. I know that the Cowboys, they had a great game last week against the Seahawks. They got a long day of rest. Eagles just got blown to smithereens. They got a piece of humble pie. Cowboys are feeling full of themselves, but I think that's why they're going to lose. I think because they think, and not the players necessarily, but the fans, they feel like they got it all good. The Cowboys are the greatest team ever. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Not going to happen. Eagles are going to go in. I think they're going to win this game. I think the defense is going to figure it out. And even if they don't figure it out, I think it's going to be a shootout. And the last time that happened, Eagles came out with a win. So give me the Birds. Monday Night Football, we have a doubleheader. First, Titans, Dolphins. Seth taking the Fins. Yeah, good call. Good call on that. Definitely taking the Dolphins in this game. The Titans are just not that good. They might have something with Will Levis. He's played sneaky okay. He's been pretty decent for them. Certainly has more upside, you would say, than Ryan Tannehill at this point. So maybe they have something in Will Levis. But the Dolphins are just one of the most unstoppable offenses in the league, and I don't think that terrible Titans defense is going to be able to do anything about it. So, yeah, give me the Fins. And finally, our second Monday night game, the Packers head to Jersey, taking on the G-Men. Seth taking the Pack, and I will just agree reflexively because, look, there's no way in heck that there is the Packers don't win this game just based on the fact that the way they've been playing the last 3 games. If the Giants somehow come away with a win here, I would love them. They'd be my favorite team ever if they could come out with a win, just because it would solidify our hopes in the division. But no, I mean, the Packers are just not going to lose to the Giants. The Giants are so bad. Tommy DeVito is not him. So, yeah, give me the Pack. All right, wrap it up here. Patriots, Steelers, we're both taking the Steelers. Buccaneers, Falcons. Seth is taking the Falcons. I am taking the Buccaneers. Rams, Ravens, we both take the Ravens. Lions, Bears, we both take the Lions. Colts, Bengals, we both take the Bengals. Jaguars, Browns, we both take the Browns. Panthers, Saints, we both take the Saints. Texans, Jets, we both take the Texans. Vikings, Raiders. Seth is taking the Vikings. I am taking the Raiders. Seahawks, 49ers, we both take the 49ers. Bills, Chiefs, we both take the Chiefs. Broncos, Chargers. Seth is taking the Chargers. I am taking the Broncos. Eagles, Cowboys, we are both taking the Eagles. Titans, Dolphins, we are both taking the Dolphins. And Packers, Giants, we are both taking the Packers. And that is the picks. All right. So that is where we're going to wrap it up. It was actually as long of a show as I thought it would be. I thought it would be a shorter show just because there wasn't that many individual news stories. But hey, all right, I'll take it. But appreciate anyone for stopping by. We will be back again live for the Lions-Bears game this Sunday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that should be exciting. Hopefully we can get another Lions victory, and we'll have another victory Tuesday to talk about the game. And hopefully it'll be a pretty win. But I doubt it's going to be a pretty win either way. But all right, appreciate you guys coming out. Have a great evening. See you later, everybody. Goodbye.